I'm Steve Jones, and I have the privilege of being Governor Mike Beebe's designee to the Delta Regional Authority Board. And it's my honor to welcome you on behalf of Governor Beebe to today's summit and on behalf of the Delta Regional Authority Board. The Delta Regional Authority has been doing a series of these throughout the region to help connect the workforce of our region to the jobs for today and the jobs of tomorrow. And what better organization to take the lead on doing this, along with our partners that we cannot ignore to make this thing happen. So I want to, again, thank you all for being here and tell you to just make sure that you participate in today's activities. There's a lot that's been prepared that I'm sure that once you leave here today, you will know that you have benefited greatly. And again, thank you for being here today. And with that, I want to call up the federal co-chairman for the Delta Regional Authority, product of this state, who has gone on to do great things throughout the 8 states of the Delta region, but he never forgets where he's from. Chris Bassengill.
Steve, thank you very much. And I tell you, the governor was smart to hire him to replace me. When I became federal co-chairman, I knew that Arkansas was going to be in good shape because the governor had the good sense to pick Steve Jones, who did a far better job than I did in that role, much more engaged, a strong advocate for the Delta region, a son of the Delta region. And so, Steve, I appreciate you more than you know, and that partnership and your leadership has a great impact on us. We have a full day, and I know people are going to be coming and going throughout the day. We want this to be conversational. We want to be engaging with you on a subject matter that is so important. In fact, we believe it is the #1 issue impacting economic development. It's one of the biggest issues impacting this state. And as we look at the opportunities that we believe that are coming our way in economic development, we have to be ready for this. We have to be ready for producing a pipeline of skilled workers better than anybody else. And how we do that is making sure we have all the right players and all the right partners at the table. And we've got a lot more to say about that as we go through the day. But I want to do a little condensing of the time schedule because we've got a couple of very important folks that are going to be with us today. Obviously, kicking off this morning is Congressman Mike Ross, and I'm going to introduce him in just a minute, and he's on a tight time schedule, so I'm going to go ahead and suspense the rest of my comments until we get finished, and I'll come back and we'll go through the day and kind of talk about some of the stuff that was given to you this morning. But we can't do these types of programs without strong partners and without strong leaders to help us do this, particularly with our strategic partners, our host partners, and particularly with UAPB. Dr. Henry Golette has been very involved in helping us pull this thing together. And Dr. Golette, thank you very much for your leadership, and we appreciate UAPB so much. And so with that in mind, I'd like to ask Chancellor Alexander to come up and say hello real quickly and want to express to him our deep appreciation. One, welcome him. Say congratulations. He's got a lot on his plate, but at the same time, he has been a great partner. He and I have had a chance to work together now several times since the short time he's been on the ground, particularly with the good economic development work that Henry is doing with the incubator, of which we were a part of. In fact, Congressman Ross will remember that when he was congressman of the 4th Congressional District, he said, go over there and make sure this thing is up and going. You want to be a partner, and so that's how I got connected, in fact, to UAPB because of Congressman Ross, and I'm proud of that relationship that we still have today. So, ladies and gentlemen, Chancellor Lamar Alexander.
Good morning. It's good to see you all here this morning. Welcome to the University of Arkansas at Pine Bluff. I'm delighted that you are here this morning. We welcome you to this Reimaging the Delta Workforce Summit on Workforce Development. We as a four-year institution are all about workforce development. That is one of our main objectives in terms of our mission for the university, is helping students, changing lives, and contributing to the economic development, particularly in the Delta, but also beyond. We are preparing students for jobs for the 21st century. And that takes very special care, it takes planning, and it takes partners. And we're very delighted to be partnering with you today and to be working with you. And we're particularly grateful to the Delta Regional Authority, to the Arkansas State Chamber and to each organization that has collaborated with us today to bring on this program. Through our collective endeavors and through the resources that are available, we can effectively strengthen and contribute to the economic prosperity by building stronger programs that promote skilled and highly skilled and a professional workforce for this area. So I thank you for your participation. We hope you enjoy your stay. If I can be of any assistance while you are here, do not hesitate to contact me. Thank you very much.
Chancellor, thank you very much for that partnership, and thank you for your willingness to be here this morning. Let me get to the next business at hand, which is very important, and we're so honored and thankful that we have individuals that have shown such great leadership for this state in their elected capacity, in their work that they've done for their communities, and certainly the service that they have given to us as the state of Arkansas. And one of those individuals is actually my former boss, somebody who I have got a lot of respect for, that I have learned a lot. In fact, the reason that I do economic development work today is because of this gentleman here. The gentleman that I want to introduce to you, who is certainly no stranger to Jefferson County and Pine Bluff and the Delta region. Somebody who actually understands what it means to do economic development. Somebody who understands what we in this part of the state deal with day in and day out. And we know the next governor of this state, whoever it may be, is going to have some unique challenges. And economic development is at the top of both of their agendas. An agenda that we think is very important. And obviously at the heart of that is our workforce training development system in Arkansas. We're seeing the leadership come out of the legislature, and I'm going to talk about Senator English here in just a little bit. But when you look at the next administration and the things that we need to do, one of the things that was given to you in your packet is a rating by the top 5 economic development publications in the world, in addition to the U.S. Chamber of Commerce, and how they view a state when it comes to workforce development and training. We've done some great things here in Arkansas. We've had some great leadership, but we also have a lot of work to do. So we felt like it was important to invite the gubernatorial candidates to be with us, to hear from them, because this is an issue that is so important. So I'm so thankful that Congressman Mike Ross, and in fact, we have also got one of his key partners for what's going to happen if they get elected to be the governor and lieutenant governor, Commissioner John Burkhalter, an Arkansas job creator, somebody who does this day in and day out, still does it, and will be a key part of what happens under a Mike Ross administration. So Commissioner Burkhalter, thank you very much for the jobs you've created for Arkansas and for being here this morning. Ladies and gentlemen, I present to you one of our gubernatorial candidates, Congressman Mike Ross.
Well, good morning. Good morning. Hope everyone is doing well. And Chris, thank you for your leadership at the Delta Regional Authority and for that gracious, for that gracious introduction. As many of you know, Chris, for about half the time that I spent in Congress was my district director and was based right here in Pine Bluff. I had a congressional office here in the federal building in Pine Bluff. If you notice the construction coming in today on University Drive, that is a result of funding that I secured during my time in Congress. It's going to allow University Drive, it's going to allow the University of Arkansas at Pine Bluff to have a proper entryway. It's going to be a 5-lane street or drive, if you will, leading up to and past UAPB. I always thought they needed the proper entryway to let people know that they are the flagship for the Delta region. I was real proud to work on that, and I'll be glad when they get it completed. I think it's really going to be a good thing. Many of you know that during my time in Congress, I represented a lot of Delta counties. I chaired the Congressional Delta Caucus. I chaired the Congressional I-69 Caucus, and did a lot of work through the Delta region, was even president of the Mississippi Valley Flood Control Association. So I understand the uniqueness and the challenges that face the Delta region. Some of you I've known a long time, some of you I'm meeting for the first time, so let me tell you a little bit about who I am and why I want to lead this state. Let me start with family. I think family is important. And on my mama's side, my grandpa Avery, he had a third-grade education. He raised 5 children on 100 acres of land. And I mean, he raised them off the land. Some of y'all know what I'm talking about. But he made sure they were in church on Sunday, and he made sure every one of them received the educational opportunities that were never available for him. In fact, I had an uncle go on to chair the physics department at Henderson State University in Arkadelphia. My mom became a school teacher. On my daddy's side, Grandpa worked on the Short Line Railroad back home in Prescott, and he died when I was about a year old, so I don't really remember him. Grandma was about the age I am now when he passed, and if you think back to 1962, she first learned how to drive a car, and then she got her GED, and she moved to Little Rock, and she went to nursing school by day and cut fabric at that old Hancock fabric store at the old Park Plaza at night. She got that nursing degree. She came back home to Prescott and was a nurse at our little county-owned hospital well into her 70s. My parents were public school educators, my mom a teacher, my dad a teacher, a principal, a school superintendent, and after 50 years in education became a United Methodist minister. I tell you these things because my family taught me the values of faith, family, hard work, personal responsibility. And I think those values served me well for the 10 years that I spent with Mike Beebe in the Arkansas State Senate, the 12 years that I spent in the United States Congress. And I just want you to know those same values will serve as my moral compass as I do my best to hopefully lead this state for the next 8 years. I've been married for 31 years to my best friend. Her name is Holly. She's a practicing pharmacist. We have 2 grown children we're very proud of, and even managed to pick up a son-in-law along the way. And he's here today, Drew Pack back here. He's here working, not campaigning, so that's all I'll say about that, but it's good to see him in the audience. And former small business owner, as I said, spent 10 years with Mike Beebe in the state Senate, where we created the original Arkansas Academic Challenge Scholarship Program. We created Our Kids First. And then in Congress, I helped lead the way in raising the minimum wage for the first time in a decade. We increased Pell Grants. We cut student loan interest rates in half. We passed the single largest increase in veterans health care funding in the history of the VA. We modernized the GI Bill so those veterans returning from Iraq and Afghanistan could go to college, and for the first time ever, if they'd already been or didn't want to go, they could pass that benefit on to a family member. And we passed the Lilly Ledbetter Fair Pay Act to ensure women are treated fairly in the workplace. Got out of Congress fed up with how partisan and dysfunctional it was. Came home, had a job in the private sector, didn't plan to ever run for office again, and then there were a lot of musical chairs in the governor's race, and when the dust settled, there were just a lot of people from all over the state that weren't happy with the choices that were out there. I got a lot of encouragement to do this. I spent about 3 months thinking about it, praying about it, discussing it with my family, and during that time I came to the realization I wasn't fed up with public service, I was just fed up with Washington. And the last thing we need in state government is the kind of partisan bickering and dysfunction that we see in Washington today. Arkansas is too small of a state for that. There's a lot more that unites us than divides us. And I have a history of working with everyone. Many of you know that during my time in Congress, I was a conservative Democrat, and we had 54 conservative Democrats in the Congress, and they chose me as their leader, and I chaired the fiscally conservative Democratic Blue Dog Coalition during that time. So I am a conservative, pro-business, pro-gun, God-fearing Arkansas Democrat. But let me be clear, I am not running for governor to be governor for the Democratic Party, and I'm not running to be governor for the Republican Party. I am fed up with the extremes of both parties. I am running to be governor for all the people in this great state, and I pledge to work with anyone and everyone who will work with me to make this state an even better place to live, to work, and to raise a family. I have a positive vision for the future of this state. I love this state. I believe in Arkansas. I believe in its people. I believe in you. And I know we can do better. I've said I want to be the education governor because I think that's how you become the jobs governor. Everything starts with education. My parents as public school educators instilled in me at a very young age how transformative education can be, how empowering education can be, how education can open up opportunities. And regardless of where you find yourself in life, education is one thing that no one can ever take away from you. So, first of all, I think we got to start sooner and finish stronger. That's why I have a pre-K plan. All my life, we've been ranked 40th something in education in too many different categories. I think the way we fix this is to get to our young people at an earlier age. Even Oklahoma has figured this out, where 75% of the 4-year-olds in Oklahoma are now enrolled in a pre-K program. In Arkansas, it's less than 50%. In fact, to get in a pre-K program in Arkansas, the family has to live at 200% of poverty or below. And even then, there's a waiting list. Fayetteville. Think of education. A lot of people think of Fayetteville when you think of education. Flagship for the University of Arkansas, and yet pre-K is only available in 5 of 9 elementary schools, and there's a waiting list at each of those. Lake Hamilton, the 20th largest school district in Arkansas, does not even have a pre-K program, and it's not their fault. They're a fast-growing school district, and as fast as they can build buildings, they need them for K through 12. So start sooner, finish stronger. Here's why it's important. We know from the time you're born through the 3rd grade, you are learning to read. And from the 4th grade through the rest of your life, you are reading to learn. When you hit the 4th grade, if you're still trying to learn to read, when you begin reading to learn, you fall behind, and most times you simply don't get caught back up. We know if you go to pre-K, you're less likely to repeat a grade, you're more likely to finish high school, finish college, you're less likely to end up on government assistance, and you're 80%. You want to talk about the prison overcrowding problem in Arkansas? You are 80% less likely to end up in prison. Start sooner, finish stronger. Some say, why haven't we done this? I think all politicians, whether you're Democrat, Republican, it really doesn't matter. Politicians tend to want to propose an idea that they can see the results from before they run for re-election, so they can say, look at what I did. And what's that gotten us? We're 40-something in education my entire life. This is something that I'm proposing that we're going to see the results from in 18 years. This is a generational movement. But it's past time for us to do it, and we got to start sooner, and we got to finish stronger, and I'm committed to that. Short term, what do? You look at 100 ninth graders in Arkansas. 20 of them will not finish high school. 40 will go to college, but only 20 will graduate college. What about the other 80? First of all, they think we look down upon them if they don't go to college. Second of all, they think they've got 3 options: college, military, minimum wage. Well, there's a 4th option out there. I'm kind of old-fashioned. I still call it VOTEC, but it's career tech. And I think we need greater partnerships between high schools, community colleges, technical schools, and existing industry, so that young people who do not choose college, they can learn a skill, they can learn a trade, they can get a certification, and they can get a good paying job. And in doing so, it helps provide our state with that educated, trained, and skilled workforce we need to attract the better paying jobs of today and tomorrow. I've been doing economic development all my life. I cannot tell you how many projects I've been involved with where we make the final 3 cut. We got the site, we got the infrastructure, we got the transportation, we got all the things they need, and then before they sign the dotted line and make a huge investment in a community and put people to work in that community, they do a little thing called a job market or labor survey. And too many times in towns large and small, and as depressed as some of these areas look, there's simply not an educated, trained, and skilled workforce available. And it's not just a problem in the Delta. Springdale, they recently had a machinist type shop. They make a specialty screw and bolt and those kind of hardware things that were stainless steel, and they were, I think, used on airplanes, but they were like, the biggest thing they made was like 1/8 of an inch. And they wanted to invest and locate recently in Springdale, Arkansas. And they did the job market labor survey, and there simply wasn't enough machinists in that area to locate there. It was about 80 jobs. So this is something that impacts not only the rural areas, the poor areas of the state, but it can even impact Northwest Arkansas. And so one of the things that I think we've got to do is we've got to have public-private partnerships that prioritize career and technical education and workforce training through the Work Ready Community Initiative. And that is part of my job's first plan, is the Work Ready Community Initiative, where local communities get with their high schools, their community colleges, their technical schools, existing industry to determine, what do we need to be training people on? And what we train people on in Northwest Arkansas is much different than what we need to train people on in Southeast Arkansas or Southwest Arkansas or Northeast Arkansas. And a lot of economic developers today, a lot of site selectors won't even look at your community today unless you have that work-ready community initiative done. Because if you don't have it done, that means they've got to pay money to do it. And so that is becoming more and more a requirement by site selectors all across this country. A lot of states are already doing this. It's past time for us to join them. Another thing as it relates to education is what I call the Innovation Lab. Some of y'all have had kids in school and know about East Lab. Remember East? That was a project that was started by a teacher in Arkansas, and it has spread nationally. And one of the things that I want to do with some of the state surplus money is to create Innovation Lab or in-lab grants to give teachers, to empower teachers, to empower principals, to empower folks in your local school to come up with an idea, apply for a grant, and get some seed money to kickstart the next East Lab in the state, to bring more innovation, if you will, to the classroom. Focus reports. I feel very strongly about this. I believe that when a young person is in the 8th grade and the 11th grade, we ought to send home a report that basically says this is the year you will finish high school. If you choose trade school, this is the year you would graduate. If you choose a 4-year college degree, this is the year you would graduate. And here's where we project the jobs to be. Here's the top 20 jobs that are going to be in demand for when you graduate, either from career tech or from college. And here's what the average starting pay is. To get a conversation going between young people and their parents at an early age about what career path they want to choose. One of the challenges we have today is too many people are getting degrees where there's not a demand in the marketplace, and we need to at least provide that information and encourage young people to pursue educational opportunities where there is a demand. We need to fully fund the governor's distinguished scholarships. And Shane Broadway is here, Director of the Department of Higher Education. We're losing too many of our best and brightest to other states. And studies tell us if they go away, typically, more times than not, they simply do not come back. Economic development, everything I've said so far, I believe, is a big part of economic development. Let me tell you another thing is I think we've got to Randy Zook is here, and I agree with him in the state chamber in that we've got to fully fund the governor's quick action closing fund. My opponent was Mike Beebe's opponent in 2006. This is my opponent's 4th consecutive decade to run for statewide office. Last decade, it was against Governor Beebe. And he said, when Governor Beebe proposed the governor's quick action closing fund, he said this won't be anything more than a slush fund for the governor. Well, let me tell you about the governor's quick action closing fund. It has put 30,000 people to work in Arkansas. The last legislative session, it was not funded. We're down to about $6 million in the fund. Randy Zook in the state chamber says we need a minimum of $50 million every 2 years in the fund, and the $6 million that's remaining in there pretty much is already spoken for and obligated for. And we can do as many of these meetings as you want to do, and we can do everything else right. But if we don't have the funds to compete with other states to get the jobs to come to places like the Delta and to Southeast Arkansas, then we're just spinning our wheels. And that's why I support fully funding the governor's quick action closing fund. Another thing that I plan to do is be very aggressive in letting America and letting the world know that Arkansas is open to do business. I'm going to be aggressive. I'm going to go to AEDC. When you're running for office, you have to spend so many hours a day just calling people you don't know, asking them for money. That's how we pay for all those TV ads that you fast forward through. Well, as governor, I'm going to continue to do call time. It won't be to raise money for my campaign. I'm going to require AEDC to do the research to determine what are industries that are thinking about expanding, what are industries that are thinking about relocating, and let's not wait for them to call us. I want to physically go over there. I'm not saying the culture at AEDC is bad, but I think it could be better if the governor physically went over there every week and committed time on the phone. Rick Scott does this down in Florida. This is not a partisan thing, it's bipartisan. And commit time on the phone calling industry saying, hey, why don't you come visit Arkansas? Why don't you look at what we have to offer in Arkansas? And then the successful business folks, we know them, the Waltons, the Tysons, the Stevens, I want to encourage them to be Arkansas ambassadors and ask them from time to time to pick up the phone and call these folks and say, hey, I know our governor talked to you. Let me tell you why I've made investments and why I've created jobs and why I do business in Arkansas. That is something I'm committed to doing. I'll tell you another thing. We're going to have a governor's cabinet on economic development. I'm surprised we don't already have one. But it's not just AEDC. You've got the Arkansas Science and Technology Authority. You've got the Arkansas Development Finance Authority. You've got higher ed. You've got community colleges. You've got technical schools. There's 6 or 7 different state agencies that have a piece in economic development. And when I speak to a local chamber or at a local economic development meeting, I always say, where's your school superintendent and your community college president? And too many times they're not in the room. And I say, well, y'all just need to adjourn this meeting then. If you're going to do economic development in your hometown and you're doing a meeting without your school superintendent, your community college chancellor or president in the room, you're wasting your time, because it's all about having an educated, trained, and skilled workforce. Same thing should apply to the governor in the state of Arkansas. And that's why we're going to have a governor's cabinet on economic development. I'm going to be very involved in it, but I'll tell you who I'm going to ask to chair it is John Burkhalter as our lieutenant governor. John is a businessman. He's not a politician. He knows a thing or two about creating jobs. John, if you'd come down here, I want you to share with them briefly a little bit about our concept with this governor's cabinet on economic development and how I want you to chair it as the next lieutenant governor in Arkansas. You know, lieutenant governor has 2 duties: preside over the Senate and become governor if something happens to the governor. I don't want this guy waiting around for me to die. I want to empower him and give him something else to do. And so I'm going to ask him to chair the governor's cabinet on economic development. You want to speak briefly to that?
Good morning. Thank you, Mike. I'm looking forward to this race. I look forward to electing Mike Ross to be our next governor and work closely with him as your next lieutenant governor. I grew up blue collar, became white collar. We need all types of jobs. Jane, I am with you 100% on what we've got to do about career tech for the future of the state of Arkansas. If I hadn't got the opportunity to get educated in the state of Arkansas, I wouldn't be talking to you today or be in front of you. But it's about getting our children educated. We've got to catch them at an early age. We've got to catch them young. We've got to make sure when they're in junior high and high school that we're visiting with them and their parents to let them know that when they graduate from high school, they're going to be making a choice. They've got to have the opportunity to have a job. Career tech, I grew up working blue-collar jobs. That's how I got the opportunity to go to college and become white-collar. To this day, I employ a lot of blue-collar employees. I need more pipe fitters and plumbers. If I could get more welders today to show up at my office, I'd put them to work. I look forward to working with you in the state of Arkansas. Thank you very much.
Thanks. Thank you. Finally, let me just say this about taxes. I have a tax cut plan. My opponent's got a tax cut plan. Again, it's almost the same debate that occurred in the governor's race in 2006. Governor Beebe said we're going to take the sales tax off on groceries, but we're going to do it as we can afford it. At the time, Asa said it's an empty promise that it never happened. Fast forward 7.5 years, 80% of the sales tax on groceries has been taken off. If we had done it all in the year 2007, as Asa proposed in that 2006 campaign, we would not have been one of 4 states with a balanced budget during the worst economic recession since World War II. We would still have teachers, policemen, and firefighters laid off today. Now he's proposing a tax cut. He says he's going to cut $100 million in income taxes in year 1. Well, I've already talked to the Department of Finance Administration. In terms of net revenue growth, we're looking at maybe, if we're lucky, $40 million in net revenue growth. So as President Clinton says, do the math, $100 million in cuts, $40 million in net revenue growth leaves a $60 million hole. And if you want to know who gets dinged the most when there's any hole at all, it's higher education. It's higher education. I'm not trying to drag Shane Broadway into this thing, but he can tell you from history, it doesn't matter who the governor is, doesn't matter if it's Democrat or Republican. If you have a shortfall, it's higher education. Here's why. Every dollar you send the state, 60 cents goes to education. And about 45 cents of that goes to K through 12, and most of it is obligated and can't be changed because of Lakeview and other court cases. 25 cents out of the dollar goes to Medicaid, and we're not going to cut that, one, because we respect and value our seniors, and secondly, for every dollar we put in to the Medicaid program, the federal government puts in 3. 10% goes to run the prison system. Everything else we do in state government, from the Economic Development Commission to ADEQ to the state police, I mean, literally everything else in state government runs on the other nickel. So even severe cuts to any of those other state agencies doesn't generate much savings. And so it's always higher education that gets the haircut. I have a tax cut plan too. And what I've said is that we're going to implement it the way we took the sales tax off groceries. We're going to do it as we have net revenue growth, and we always do. We're going to balance the budget first. We're going to fund education, Medicaid, public safety, and then as we have revenue growth, and we always do, we're going to begin to implement my plan. Our state income tax rate in Arkansas is too high, and 60% of the folks in the state pay the top 60% of the people in the state pay the top 2 rates. 1 out of every 3 people pay the top rate, which means a single mom working 2 jobs to make ends meet, earning $34,000 a year, is paying the same state income tax rate as someone making $340,000 a year or someone making $3.4 million a year. There's nothing fair about it, and as governor, we're going to fix it, but we're going to do it in a fiscally responsible way. The other thing that I want to do, as we can afford it, is take the sales tax off of manufacturing parts and repairs. This is a top priority for Randy Zook and the State Chamber of Commerce. My opponent said it sounded like something President Obama would propose. No, it was something the State Chamber of Commerce proposed. And the legislature, in a bipartisan way, has already begun to take a little bit of that off, but we're still not competitive with surrounding states. Surrounding states simply don't charge a sales tax on replacement parts and repairs. This doesn't sound very sexy, I get that, but let me tell you why it's important. We spent all this money trying to get an industry to come to Arkansas. And what we better do once we get them here is be encouraging them to modernize, because when it comes time to close a plant, too many times they close the one that's not modernized. And Arkansas is the only state that says once we get them here, we tell them, now we want you to modernize, but if you do, we're going to tax you. So Nucor has been putting people to work in Arkansas since the 80s. If they modernize their plant, they pay sales tax on those parts. Big River Steel, and I'm very glad they're coming to Arkansas, but because they're new here, they don't pay the sales tax on those same pieces of machinery that they're installing. And so I think it's the right thing to do to encourage existing plants that we have here to modernize and grow and put more people to work. I've probably said too much. Do you want me to take any questions, or? That would be great if you've got time. I'll be glad to take a few questions. Anybody has any? Yes, ma'am.
On the 10% that it takes to run state prisons, is there any way that the state prisons could become self-sufficient? Prisoners grow vegetables, grow things that would reduce those expenses, and that money goes someplace else?
They already do that. Almost all the food that's consumed in the prison system is grown by the inmates. I mean, everything from beef and pork. I'm not sure if they're still doing chickens. I'm not sure about the chicken. Someone told me maybe it's cheaper to buy chicken than it is to grow it. I'm not sure about that. But beef and pork and all the fruits and vegetables are grown by the inmates. But since you asked, let me tell you this. We got a prison overcrowding problem. We got about 2,000 inmates backed up in county jails, which is putting a lot of stress on a lot of our counties out there. And the Department of Corrections projects that the prison population in Arkansas is going to grow 700 to 1,000 inmates per year. I'm not going to stand here and tell you that we're not going to have to build another prison at some point in the future, but I'll tell you this. If we do under my administration, there's going to be meaningful prison reforms tied to it. We need tougher sentences for the repeat offenders. Just in Little Rock, auto thefts and residential burglaries, 75% of them are occurring by people who've been to prison before. 45% are occurring by people who are currently on parole. And I think they need tougher sentences. We got to send a message: you keep reoffending and you're going to do the time. Here's what else we got to do, though. We got to have smarter sentences. We got to have smarter sentences. We got to stop locking up the people we're mad at, so we got plenty of room to lock up the people we're afraid of. Columbia and Union County have a plan that they have implemented. And basically, what they do a needs assessment of inmates to determine why are they acting up, why are they doing bad things, why are they breaking the law. And basically what they tell them is, here's your prison sentence, but it's for some first time, some nonviolent, some that are simply addicted to drugs. I mean, a lot of people are addicted to drugs, and we send them down to prison, spend $25,000 a year of your tax money. They're not professional criminals, but by the time they leave there, they are, because we sent them to school on how to become a professional criminal, when what they needed was drug treatment. And so in Union and Columbia County, with this smarter sentencing program, they're saying, here's your sentence, but you won't get this sentence if you get this drug treatment. And you go through this drug treatment program and you submit the drug test and, report to your parole officer and do all these things. Others, they determine, need a GED. Others simply need to learn how to be a welder or some type of career tech certification. Those that have been through the program in Columbia and Union County, statewide, the recidivism rate's about 50%. Down there, for those who have been through this program, the recidivism rate is below 4%. In just those two counties in 1 year saved the state over $4 million a year. And so that is a little bit about what I think we need to be doing as a state. We got to lock up the people we're afraid of, not the people we're mad at. There's other ways to alternatively punish and sentence them. Yes?
And speaking to your comments about the importance of education in our workforce, how would you propose to get business more engaged in that educational process, K-12 and on?
On the career tech, or
just in educating our workforce, getting business industry engaged with the educational process.
What I'm talking about is greater partnerships between the local community, high schools, community colleges, technical schools, and existing industry, where they come together and determine, what are the skill sets that are needed in our community, and then through a state program, have these work-ready certified communities like a lot of states are doing. And so the local business folks in the community, existing industry, would have a big say in that, because we need to be training people specifically based on the need in their region of this state. Well, thank you for the opportunity. My website's mikeross.com. All my plans are there. I hope you will review those and take a look at them. And while you're there, please like me on Facebook. Thank you so much. It's great to be with you.
Asa Hutchinson clearly has a track record of doing positive things for this country and for this state, through his service in Congress, through his time at the Department of Homeland Security, even dealing with the issues that he had to face as a U.S. prosecuting attorney. So now he's asked the people of Arkansas to give him a shot. And we're giving him an opportunity and a shot today to talk about workforce training and education. So Congressman Hutchinson, thank you for your partnership with us. Thank you for being here, and the floor is yours.
Thank you, Chris. Can everybody hear me from this point of view? Great. This way I can see you much better. I am delighted to be here, and I've learned a lot in politics, and probably the most important thing I've learned is I don't know everything. And one of the areas that I don't know everything about is workforce education, and I enjoyed getting here a little bit earlier, and I got to meet legislators, and thank you for being here and your incredible work. I got to meet some industrial leaders that are here, education, government officials, all here in this room. And I recognize that you've got great ideas, you've got incredible experience, you've got a great vision for this state, and you share the same love I do and mission that we've got to increase the capability, the skills of our workforce in order for us to grow economically as we want to do. And so I hope that I can have a conversation with you, tell you some of the priorities that I have. But also I'd like at the end to turn it open and hear from you and get your guidance to me and or questions that you might have as well. I particularly want to thank the legislators here first. You all have really initiated a great review, trying to get a good handle on this, make this a high priority, and so I applaud you being here and also your leadership on this area. I look back on my life, and when I was in high school, typically, like anybody else, I went through the job progression. I started mowing lawns, and then I was sacking groceries when I was 16. And then I got what my dad says, your first really hard job, which was working in a manufacturing facility. Actually, it was Welch's grape juice production facility in Springdale that's no longer there. But I actually worked, I went to school, and then I worked 40 hours. And you could do that during that time. And then during summer in college, I was able to work at Westinghouse Air Brake Company. It was really a serious manufacturing of heavy construction equipment. So I look back on those job experiences, and they are no longer available to our young people, those entering the workforce, and they're probably not even available for those who have good technical training because well, I shouldn't say that, but they've moved into another arena, which is robotics, more highly skilled workforce. And so me as an entry-level person would not have that opportunity again. And so we're facing a different world today than what I faced when I was in high school and I was in college and working in factories and enjoying that experience. And then I relate the experience that I've had just over the last few weeks. First of all, I am delighted to be here at UAPB. What an incredible facility, what an incredible Arkansas institution that is doing a great job for our state, and I'm proud to be again on the campus of UAPB. But whenever I come down to South Arkansas, last week I was in Monticello, I was in Dumas, and I was in Crossett. And as I met with different manufacturers, different employers, the cry I heard from them was, we need more workers, we need more skilled workers, and that we have openings that we cannot fill. And if you look in the headline of the paper today, actually our national economy is moving that direction where we're having more job openings than we've ever had, at least in the last 6 or 7 years since the recession started. And so the opportunities are there. And then I met with the truckers. The truckers cannot hire workers. They cannot get enough people, and they're paying like $50,000 a year for those that have a CDL and they can qualify and have got the skill, and it's an incredible career opportunity. Now, the adjustment they're having to make is that they need to develop a lifestyle that's more compatible with parents wanting to go see their kids play ball on Thursday night or Friday night and not be in that long haul route. And so they're having to address that to be more competitive and be able to recruit the workers they do. And so adjustment is a part of life. And whether it's adjusting to robotics and the technical skills required, or adjusting to what fits best in America and in Arkansas in terms of skills and opportunities in manufacturing, and finding the right niche for Southeast Arkansas in terms of complementing the incredible agricultural economy that we have in the Southeast. So those are all, to me, natural adjustments that you have in life that we have to make as policymakers, but it also presents incredible opportunities to us. I went to CARC here in Pine Bluff to the community college, two-year college here in town. And I met a 65-year-old master welder. And he was telling me that he worked all of his life and he retired and he was a master welder. And after he retired for a while, he was 65, he says, I still got a lot to offer. And so he went back to the community college and he started teaching young people the ability to weld and the skill. And I said, well, what do you teach them? And he says, I teach them the technical skills of the workplace, the technical skills of the job that's needed in welding, and I teach them the soft skills of the workplace. And I thought I knew what he meant, but I said, what do you mean by soft skills of the workplace? He says, showing up to work on time, cleaning up after yourself, getting a paycheck, and living responsibly. And I said, well, how do you teach? I know technical skills. How do you teach the last part of it? And he said, easy. I put on the whiteboard the exam at 8 a.m. in the morning when the class starts, and I erase it at 10 after. And And he went through a few other illustrations as how he's teaching that skill. I said, well, what do they get whenever they finish? And he says they can immediately go to work for about $45,000 a year with the certificate that they will get. Those are incredible opportunities for our young people, and it tells us that we have to engage in the career technical education. We need to make sure that we are adjusting what we need to do in the state of Arkansas to meet the job needs of the future. And so I want to share with you about 8 points real quickly about my priorities that I would offer in terms of career education. This is my perspective. This is what I think is important as we look at the future of this state. One of them is we've got to make sure the opportunities exist for our veterans. I made an announcement yesterday about the importance of veterans to our economy in the state of Arkansas, but also to recognize their service, their sacrifice, and we want those particularly that are from Arkansas to be able to come back to Arkansas and find a job and to utilize the skills that they've learned. And so whenever we talk about career education and job skills in the workplace, we need to make sure our veterans have a priority in training, but also in terms of whether it's tax incentives, whether it is whatever it takes to bring them back to the state of Arkansas. And we need to be competitive with our other states in our income tax rates for our returning men and women of the military. We obviously also, as Congress indicated, we need to make sure they have availability of in-state tuition, which is an incentive that Congress has given us for our returning military, but we have to take action on that. It's tied to the GI Bill, and we want to make sure that happens in Arkansas as well. So we need to make sure we remember our veterans. Secondly, it's important that, in my view, that our two-year colleges have the lead in career education. Now, not everybody might agree with that, but to me that's a natural fit. It reflects the level of training that is needed in the workplace. I don't believe a high school diploma is everything that's needed in the technical skills of the workplace today. And so two-year colleges are a natural fit in our technical schools, and they have a lead role to play in career education, and they should be a center point of their activities. And two-year colleges have many different roles today. They're a feeder school into our four-year colleges. They are a forum for non-traditional students who want to get back in and just take a few extra classes. So they have many different roles, but they should never neglect the responsibility and the role that they have in leading our career education and technical education for the workforce and partnering with our industry. And there's a lot of examples of good things that are happening. Mid-South Community College in West Memphis doing an extraordinary job partnering with industry in career training. But I also was up in Harrison, and in Harrison you had North Ark Community College, and it's right next door to Pace Industries. Pace Industries burned down last April. They have rebuilt, made a commitment to Arkansas that they didn't have to make, and they are partnering with NOARC that's right outside their back door across the street in developing the technical skills that they need to be competitive. And whenever you look at Superior Industries in Rogers that just closed their place, and I have a extended family member that worked there that lost the job. And whenever you see them close, and whenever you see down then in Mena, they're actually the manufacturer there. They're saying we're looking to recruit from those that are laid off from Superior and Rogers. And so they're looking for those workers that have the skills, machinist background that can get the job done and keep us competitive. I was in Rich Mountain Community College, the same opportunities and partnerships. CARC here is doing an incredible job. And so our two-year colleges really have a lead role to play. The third principle I would offer is that high schools must be a partner. And this varies across Arkansas. You've got some two-year colleges that are really partnering with our high schools, and others are just not bothering at all. There's no relationship there in terms of technical training. There's some high schools that resist that, saying, this is our world, we don't want to deal with it. You've got some two-year colleges that resist it because, well, that's high school or college. But whenever you look at the priorities in career education, we need to have two-year colleges engaged, and we need to have our high schools as being a partner for it. I was down in Texarkana and going to Texarkana High, Arkansas High, and there I saw this beautiful building, and I said, what's that? And they said, that is our shop building. And they said, the sad thing is that we're losing attendance in our shop classes because our core curriculum have not left our students with enough time to take the technical classes that we have this incredible facility for. And so high schools, as well as the two-year colleges, need to re-engage in career education and make sure that opportunity is not squeezed out of for our students, that they have an opportunity to take those. As part of that partnership between our two-year colleges and high school, an emphasis I would like to see is on concurrent credit, which whenever a high school student is taking a college that is equivalent to, is taking a course that's equivalent to what is offered at the two-year college, whether it's offered on the two-year college campus or whether it's offered on the high school campus, concurrent credit can make a huge difference. It makes a difference in making college more affordable, because all of a sudden this student can graduate with a semester under their belt already. And that saves costs in terms of a more affordable college education. The second benefit from it is that you have students that might have, no one in their family has ever gone to college before. And all of a sudden, they don't think they can, but whenever they take a concurrent credit class and they get college credit for it, they say, I can do it. This can work for me in my life, and it's incentive for them to go further. And so concurrent credit gives us an advantage here in Arkansas in terms of encouraging people to go on for further education, but also making it affordable down the road. The fourth principle I think is important is that skills training should lead to a job. You know, there's no sense going through a welding class if there's not welding opportunities when you get your certificate. There's no sense developing the skills in robotics if there's not a plant that focuses on that, or if the economic priority of the region that you're living happens to be tourism. Maybe you want to have some training in the hospitality industry, because that has a better opportunity to lead to jobs. And so if we're going to encourage our young people, as we should, to get career educational training, let's make sure they get a job at the end of their training, and that it leads to something that's employable for them. And as part of that, the fifth principle is that business and industry leaders must be engaged. Now, there's a lot of different ways to do this. I have presented my plan, which says that we need to have 8 regional councils in Arkansas that are made up of educators, but primarily business leaders and economic developers for the different regions of the state will say, these are our economic opportunities and these are the jobs we're going to pursue in the next 5 or 10 years. And it could be in hospitality, it could be in manufacturing, it could be in the high-tech arena. A whole host of different technical fields that could be emphasized by that particular regional council and that economic region. And so once those priorities are set, then our 2-year colleges, in partnership with our high schools, should gear the career training to the economic priorities of that region. That way you're trained to get a job and it works together. Now, how do partnerships work and how does cooperation together work? And how will that ever work if the council sets the economic priorities, and how do you get the 2-year colleges and high schools to respond to that? The money needs to flow the same direction. And so when we talk about our workforce education dollars from the state of Arkansas, it needs to be applied to those two-year colleges and our high schools that are working in partnership and are creating jobs that fit with the economic model of that region. And so I would like to see our money flow in that way. The sixth principle is that we need to streamline state government. Now, I did this for fun, but currently Arkansas has several agencies responsible for providing training for today's workforce. The Arkansas Economic Development Commission, of course, works in that arena, provide a career readiness certificate. The existing workforce training program and the business industry training program. Arkansas Works, the Arkansas Association of Two-Year Colleges, Workforce Training Consortia, Department of Workforce Sources, and the Department of Career Education are just some of those that are engaged in it. Now, I don't have my master's degree in public administration, but let me tell you, I've seen enough to see overlap that needs to be funneled more efficiently. And I believe state government can do their work more efficiently in delivery of workforce services. And that's a criteria that I want to be able to follow. And then the seventh principle, and you've heard me talk about this, but I'll never talk about job opportunities without mentioning this. And that is the need for technology education and particularly computer science. And that's why my objective is to make sure that computer coding is offered in every high school in Arkansas within 4 years. Whenever I went through Pace Industries, they were showing me what men and women were doing in the workforce. And they said, in a short amount of time, robotics will be coming in to replace those. And there's going to be job opportunities with the robotics, but it's going to take more technical training. And so if we can, in our high schools, offer computer coding skills, and if only 20% of our students take it, because we're not like the United Kingdom mandates computer coding in every high school in the UK. They mandate it. So we just want to offer it. But if only 20% of the students take computer coding and develop that skill, that means we in Arkansas will be producing 6,000 high school graduates every year that have an ability in computer programming. That has an opportunity to change the economic future of this state. When you look at Axiom that cannot hire enough computer programming in industry and the possibilities of manufacturing and robotics, we have to have that technical workforce. But it also creates entrepreneurs. You can be in Forest City where you have high-speed broadband internet and you have the ability to write computer code. You can be the next Bill Gates that will create the programs and the job opportunities for the next generation. It doesn't take a whole lot of combination other than entrepreneurial skill, computer coding, understanding the internet, and access. So that is something that needs to be a part of our effort and certainly will be mine as well. There's always the subjective part of leadership. And I was going through a facility, a manufacturing facility, hopes to be a manufacturing facility. Has about 100 employees though. Talking to the CEO, and the CEO offered to me and said that I just had a call, the CEO just had a call from Governor Rick Perry. And I said, what did Governor Rick Perry want of you? He's in Fort Smith, Arkansas. And he said, well, Governor Rick Perry wanted to offer me some incentives and wanted me to move from Arkansas to Texas. And I said, the first thing I'm going to do as governor is to block all calls coming from Governor Rick Perry's office into the state of Arkansas. It is a competitive world. You've got governors in surrounding states that are lowering their tax rates, that are reducing the burden of regulation, that are on the phone recruiting industry and providing incentives, and we've got to do all of that. And we've got to make sure we are competitive, and I intend to be on the phone, I intend to recruit, I intend for us to win that competition in Arkansas. We are growing at a slower rate of GDP growth in our surrounding states, and that is unacceptable. I want to kick our economy in gear, and you in this room do as well, because when you match the opportunities with a skilled workforce, then the sky is the limit. And when I talk about tax competitiveness, I haven't presented a $600 million plan. my plan is a $100 million plan to lower the income tax rate from 7% down to 6% and 6% to 5% if you're in the lower category for those in middle income. And that's important because that's our workforce. That is those people who are working that we're speaking of today, and if we can reduce that tax rate, we accomplish a couple things. One, we're more fair to the worker. Secondly, we're able to retain our workers to a greater extent. In West Memphis, they're telling me if my plan was adopted, that would lower for middle income the tax rate from 7% down to 5%. If we can just get it to 5%, they said, we can keep our workers. Why do they have a problem keeping their workers? Because they can live in Tennessee and pay 0%, and they take a 7% haircut off their bottom line if they move to Arkansas. And so we have to be competitive with our surrounding states. It's an issue when we're building Big River Steel over in Osceola. Where are those workers going to live when they think about a 7% tax rate versus lower tax rates in surrounding states? And so tax competitiveness is a part of it as well. So those are some priorities that I wanted to outline. There's a lot more, and I'm going to turn it open here in just a second, and you can tell me where I'm wrong. But I hope that if there's anything else, you can sense some enthusiasm and the opportunities that we have as a state for the future. But it really all hinges upon the work that you do here and in policy and in government and in industry in making sure that we invest and prepare a workforce that will attract the businesses that we need. Thank you all very much. So questions or comments? I didn't take long. I could have talked longer, so you're going to have to make up for it. I know you want to take a nap after that nice lunch. All right. Thank you very much.
They want the media rather than the crowd. Congressman Ross was in here earlier. We spoke a bit about the pre-K programs. You had said that his plan was more was a new program rather than an extension of the existing program. While his plan, obviously it's going to take a while to solve the problem, and nothing's going to be done in a quick fix. Does Arkansas have the resources where we can do something immediately with junior colleges, high school, and stuff like that, or do we have to grow essentially a new crop of children, starting with 4-year-olds, getting them to sit down? Do the kids that come up previously possess the skills where they can get into these things right away, or have we missed that opportunity to make them trainable at a high level?
We can't wait 10 years to develop a skilled workforce. And so I support pre-K. I support expanding pre-K. We have a program right now that uses our tax dollars to fund pre-K for those that need it most, those families that make up to 200% of poverty. And that is not adequately funded now. It's not funded. And so there's a waiting list for those that are right now qualify for that program. My objective is let's fund our existing program before we create another program. And let's make sure we get our resources to those that need it the most. And those that are in the high poverty areas and are economically disadvantaged, and let's make sure that we support that program. And so pre-K is important for our future. So that's really a separate topic. This is about taking those that are in high school. Let's make sure they have the technical training opportunities and that there's other paths to success other than trying to simply make it in college, which is critically important. But for our purposes today, I think it's about career education and the technical skills of the workforce. Sure. All right, I'll turn it back to you, Chris. Thank you.